Alright, time to feed these hungry Steam Deck fans and Linux gamers. Oh yeah, me again. Hello viewers, mornings, another beautiful day. Yep. Hope your five senses work, health and strength is good. Or excellent. Okay, you Linux Mint users, the beta is available to download. Alright, listen to this. The beta of Linux Mint 22, Wilma, anyway, arrives ahead of an expected stable release in late July or possibly early August, depending on how many bugs, issues, and quirks are found and fixed during the formal beta testing. Linux Mint 22 is a sizable update. It's the first version to be based on top of Ubuntu 24.4 LTS and inherits all of the foundational goodies that release provides it. This includes the Linux 6.8 kernel, update graphics driver, and Pipewire as a default sound server. It says here, but Linux Mint adds plenty of its own spice on top, including its own desktop environment, Cinnamon, a suite of core apps, and newer version of those in the Noble archives, and a variety of other changes. Then it says new features in Cinnamon 6.2, which is the default desktop of Linux Mint 22. And then it says Mate and XFCE version are also available for those who prefer them. See, I tell you, updates are coming in, folks. It says, here's the update. Search bar shows by default when adding to startup applications. New screen lock delay option, 5 and 10 seconds. Workspace switch support, removing workspace with a middle click. Cinnamon spices now support configurable key binding. Key binding now searchable. Then it says in keyword shortcut editor. User applet support showing users profile pics on panel. Cinnamon session now have greater badges. Mint menu gains a science category. And then it says corner bar applet makes clicks action configurable. OSK picks up a button to dismiss the OSK. An active VPN connection appends padlock to network icon. Yeah, I know you guys love that. And then it says core app in Linux Mint 22 gains new features and or improvements. It says Nemo, finding Nemo. Nemo gains a new layout editor and submenus for actions. Matrix web app, then it says Element, adds the default install. Software Manager hides unverified FlatHub apps by default. Then it say Warpinator now has a restart item in the menu. And then Pix now support JXL. I was going to say JLX. Sticky Notes let you set default screen position. And Time Shift breaks now shows confirmation dialog on delete. Then it says XCD text editor gains keyboard shortcut to toggle mini maps. And then it says Redshift remove. Then it says due to Mozilla location service deprecation. Anyway, it says additionally Thunderbird is now packaged by the Linux Mint team as a deb package. This is because Ubuntu switched to Thunderbird snaps, and maybe the Thunderbird deb in the repo a transition package which installs the snaps and snapped. It says here many default apps have been downgraded to older GTK3 versions, or the last good version retains. This is because many of the newer versions presents the Ubuntu 24.4 repos make use of GTK4/lib add weta, which Linux Mint isn't enumerated with. And then it says Among the apps downgraded, celluloid genome calculator, simple scan, disk usage analyzer, system monitor, and genome calendar, and file roller. Says web apps create with the web app manager use Firefox as before, but the toolbar and menu are now hidden by default. These reappear as if when needed, such as opening a link in a web app in a new tab. Then it says general changes in Linux Mint 22 includes guest session disabled by default. Pipewire is now the default sound server. Less disk space used for translation. Default touchpad driver is now libinput. That's Libinput. Selection of new desktop backgrounds. Then it says shutdown timeout is reduced to 10 seconds. Stick greeter supports cursor scaling for HID PI display. That's HIDP, I think PL display. Then it says standalone genome online accounts apps. And then it says here and a bunch of lower level bug fixes, stability improvements, and performance tweaks are as you expected, included as a part of this update. But those invisible changes aside, the list above covers the user-facing new features in Linux Mint 22. Then it says download Linux Mint 22 beta. Download Linux Mint 22 beta from one of the official mirrors linked to in the release announcement. Be sure to read the release notes and keep in mind that this release is intended for testing purpose, may contain bugs, etc. Then it says those testing should report bugs with Linux Mint 22 on the dedicated GitHub page. Then it says in parentheses, but do not file bug related to Wayland there. And it says no one is advised to make a beta release their default OS, but many do. Anyone using the beta will be able to upgrade to the final stable Linux Mint 22 release by installing updates. And then it says similarly, once the final release arrives, it will be possible to upgrade to Linux Mint 22 from 21.3. And then it says final release of Linux Mint 22 will be supported with security updates until 2029 and works on the next major version, Linux Mint 23, won't take place until 2026. Then it says Linux Mint 21.1, 22.2, and 22.3 will also be based on Ubuntu 24.04 LTS. And that's it. So you Linux Mint nerds, indulge yourself. Anyway, now we got 4 comments. What do we got here? 4 comments. Freach said this user interface and theme feels so old. We should be able to achieve something as polished as Mac OS X. What are we missing here? And then Sheba said this, I don't think Mint devs are interested in the slightest in OS X. Maybe Genome is liberated apps are better for you. The design is fundamentally a copy and paste of Apple. Then if you need a GTK plus 3 app, you can always give a chance to ADW-GTK3, a widget that supports theming. Can you imagine that? That's so futuristic. Then who is this? Satira said this. Linux Mint arguably is one of the most polished DEs around. Its theming is so deep and consistent that at first glance you don't even notice whether it's the cinnamon mate or XFCE flavor you're looking at. Old, maybe, but how is that bad? What I want in my DE is usability, functionality, and that's it, and that it doesn't get in the way of what I want to do. YMMV, but as far as I am concerned, I have tried many old and new distros and DE and found none that would beat Linux Mint, specifically the cinnamon variant in that regard. I think that's up for debate. But anyway, Linux Mint is what Linux Mint users want it to be. For users who insist on more modern looks, Mint is not for them. They should look elsewhere. Then he says in parentheses, and there are quite a few more modern looking DEs out there. Instead of suggesting to change Mint, Mint is exactly how it should be. Well, that is true. You know, some people. It's a difference of opinions. You know, some people gonna have issues with Linux Mint. Others don't. Last comment here. And this from Joe. He said, I think it's a case that awry many aesthetics isn't what the majority, and then it says, are certainly the vocal majority of Linux Mint users want. Mint updated its theme a few releases back, and there was some drama about it, so compromises were made and a legacy package introduced. I wouldn't for a second suggest that Linux Mint looks isn't functional or usable. It's perfectly fine, but I do agree subjectively that it is a little dated. But before anyone drag me for saying that, as long as it's satisfy the people who actually use Linux Mint, then it says, as I don't, that's all that matters. Mint has never, to me, seems to be a distro focused on mass appeal for the sake of it, nor chasing trends. Its USP is squarely on the familiar and functional. It's built up a huge following by doing what it does, so it proves it's a worthwhile approach. Linux Mint is customizable, though some Linux Mint is customizable, though, so anyone who wants to take that reliability and put a fancier look on top can do so. As a thought exercise, would Linux Mint actually gain users if it was prettier? Or are the sort of Linux users who care about design more likely to favor modern UX as well and thus be more drawn to desktop like GNOME, Shell, KDE Plasma, and Cosmic, etc. ETAL. Well, look, look, with these Linux distros, Linux have a lot of distros, meaning OS operating systems. So they come in different flavors, different design, and a user, people that uses Linux, they pick the ones that they like, and the one that they're comfortable with, and the one they like to use. And sure, Linux Mint is always getting updates, so the user interface it will always get updates, so it's only a matter of time. I'm sure that the developers are looking at this and they're listening to the users' feedback, and they're going to see what they can do to improve things. But you know, there's a set of people that like Ubuntu. There's a set of people that like Linux Mint. There's a set of people that like XFCE. There's a set of people that like Fedora. There's a set of people that like Debian. So there's a bunch of people that like Slackware. There's a bunch of people that like Puppy Linux. So when it comes to the Linux Mint, to Linux operating system, people are going to have their choices and their preferences, and what they think. Now some of them might compare it to Mac OS, but Mac OS appeals to a different genre of people. To say that, okay, Linux Mint need to have like a user interface like a Mac OS, it's a suggestion, but it might apply to that particular person, but to the rest of the Linux Mint users, it might not apply. So it all comes down to like right now it's a difference of opinion. So Linux Mint appeals to the users who like it, and for the users who are having issues with it, man, they need to try another distro, you know. But Linux Mint is pretty good. Me, I use Ubuntu, but I also use XFCE, and I've also used Linux Mint. They all have their advantages and disadvantages, but they're still good. They're still good operating systems to use. You know, so yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the whole thing, though. This whole, Linux Mint. You know, people are going to have their choices and their preferences when it comes to these Linux these Linux operating systems. You know, they're gonna like some things about it, and they're gonna dislike some things about it, and that's up for discussion. You know, so yeah. But other than that, man, the beta is out now, and that should hold you for now until the full release. The beta might come with bugs, but the updates should fix it. So yeah, but you know, each Linux distro each Linux distro applies to a certain amount of people. Not everybody's gonna like Linux Mint. Not everybody's gonna like Ubuntu. Not everybody's gonna like Puppy XFCE. Not everybody's gonna like Puppy Linux, Slackware, Fedora, Debian. You know, the Linux distros, they just give you choices, so you got to pick the one that applies to you. That's how you go about it. That's my thoughts. Anyway, but that's all. That's it. That's what I got to say. That's what I got to say on this whole this Linux Mint situation. You know, some people are gonna like it, and others are not. You know, so yeah. Anyway, but changes is good within the operating system, though. Changes are good. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think on this. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still Star Wars, Star Trek thing. Borg, Dark Side. Gone. Peace.